Episode 9 of Just Beavin here for you right now. We are down a panel member right now, Andy and JP here with you. No Beaver. He will be joining us later on in the show. You might notice by our attire, we recorded this over 2 different days. Busy schedules, life gets in the way. It's just how things happen. But we're here for you right now. And the first part of the show will be recapping the most recent week of the season. That would be week 4. Before we get there, though, JP, how are we doing?
We're doing good. I just realized I was displaying week 3 to everyone, and so I apologize for that. But we're good. It's late night, as you mentioned, 2 parts. But gotta do what we gotta do.
Yeah, and it'll be weird. This is the first segment we'll be doing, not all three of us. It's a little odd. We miss Beaver. Wish he could be here for the recaps, but don't worry, fans. He will be here for the previews and our power rankings. No guest this week. Once again, scheduling being tough. We hope to get back on that track next week. But I know JP's got some midterms coming up, so we will keep you posted on the status if there is or isn't an episode next week. Hopefully, it can be understanding. Beaver.fest on Instagram for all of those updates. Let's get right to it. Recapping week 4. We're going to start with yourself, JP, the head coaching debut of Benjamin Haggerty taking on Dade. Bunch of rebranding, Dade, a new team name as well. And I'll let you take it from here, JP. Safe to say a really good week in the first go at it for Benjamin Haggerty as your head coach.
Yeah, and for those who saw the last episode, and Andy, as I'm sure you remember, I said I wanted to really see a dogfight here. I wanted to win this match 85-80. I did not want to allow a lot of points. Unfortunately, the defensive struggles are still there. That might be a managerial problem. I might have picked a bad players to control this defense, but the offense showed out in a way that we were not expecting for a head coach's debut. And the best part about the defense is it can only get better. And we really liked the debut that Haggerty came in with, getting a win week 1, or his week 1, our week 4. But yeah, we're excited. We took down David Spade over there, and so we're feeling good about ourselves moving to 2-2.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to let you take most of the recap. My big takeaway, and you can see it on your screen, 35 points from Derrick Henry and a dominant Baltimore win against the Bills. And what was supposed to be a good, hopefully competitive Sunday night game ended up not even being that. So that was good to see. And for Dade, I do want to tip my cap. He continues to score more and more points every week. I know that's not what he wants, but his team is continuing to progress and get better. Jordan Addison, a recent acquisition for Dade, and Jaden Reed, both having big weeks. Breaks 100 for the first time this season. Brandon Allen. I didn't even know he had
Brandon
Brandon
Allen's
Allen on his
roster.
roster. All right. But hey, yeah, Dade broke 100, but obviously when you're going against a guy who's putting up nearly 170, there's just not enough that can be done there. JP, you moved to 2-2, Dade to 0-4. The entire panel last week picking yourself to win. And we go from one blowout to another. Cam against Ty, the mighty Polacks, and Fat Domino's Three Fingers. I think my big note, JP, for this is the new standard for Ty going forward. Selling the fire sale, getting rid of everyone. This is what we're going to expect from his team. I mean, Will Levis didn't even finish in positive points, and I know that's because the injury and he got taken out for Mason Rudolph, but still not a good look. Goose egg from Jeff Wilson. Just overall, this is what we're going to expect moving forward. Only had 2 double-digit performers, Tajay Spears and Noah Gray. And yeah, this Levis trade, JP, continuing to look worse and worse by the week for Ty.
Yeah, I mean every move Ty makes, it just brings me back to this. I mean, he'd be sitting in such a good position had he just held on to those picks. I can't believe he gave that up for Will Levis. Yeah, as you mentioned, this is just the new norm for Ty. That 1-3 will eventually be 2-12 when he eventually wins that game against Dade. But yeah, I mean, this is the new norm. And I gotta say for Cam Crook though, if he really wanted to, he could make a playoff push. He
Yeah.
obviously doesn't, but if he would have just sat there with the roster that he got from the expansion with no moves made, he would probably be a playoff team. His whole reasoning was because he is beating up on the bad teams that he stood no chance, but he's scoring like 127
Mm-hmm.
this right in every single week. I mean, in my opinion, if he really wanted to be a playoff team, he could be one. But you gotta look at it from his point of view, and this is what you want to see from if you're tanking and you're not
Right.
exactly looking to win. I mean, sitting at 3-1, knowing that next year you know that you draft a rookie who's going to come in and impact your team right away, that you could be sitting on the outskirts of the playoffs. So that's good. That's good to see for him.
Yeah, there's a foundation there to build on. And like I said, only 3-1 expansion team. A guy that he has that I think when I texted you my list, I'm pretty sure I held on to him. And then I swapped him at the last minute for Russell Wilson. That would be one Wandale Robinson. He's been awesome this year.
Yeah,
It's
he's
obviously
been phenomenal.
tough to predict in a Giants offense and getting in Malik
I mean,
Neighbors.
14 targets, 12
Yeah,
targets.
targets after targets for this guy. And I mean, the minimum of 9.8 depth is important, especially with a team that gets injured as much as mine. We really could be using that wide receiver depth over at the IR right now. It's unfortunate. I have texted Cam with his price on Wandale. It's a price I will not pay. I'm pretty stubborn in that regard, but also I know the worth. Just disappointing, but good for him, right? He got him late in the expansion draft because that was toward the
from
end
the
of those.
from the turn to
Yeah,
the 3 to the 4. And I'm gonna give Cam his little shout here, and this is the last time I'll talk about it because I told him I was done talking about it. But Cam went on a trip over the pond a little bit ago over to Ireland. Anywho, while he was over there, uh, my school group chat that he's a part of, I guess it's more of our sports intriguing, our sports gambling
yeah,
group
you could
chat,
say it. Yeah,
and we uh he was in a full-on argument that Wandale Robinson is currently worth more than Sam Laporta. He was going 1-on-6, taking out all of us, defending it. But
yeah.
every time I want to bash him for it, it just looks better and better for
Mhm.
him. So, Cam, there's your little shout. We're done talking about it. So,
Yeah. No, and that's the one thing you mentioned the turn. Me, you, and Drew were on it. It wasn't on this channel, but we had live streamed it on Twitch for the rest of the league members. And before we got to that turn, I obviously don't say anything because everyone's watching and my thoughts can be heard out loud. Unlike the panel member who is not here, who did not hesitate to make his opinions known. Guys drafted and not drafted in the expansion draft. Love you, Drew. Um, but when we were about to get to that turn, I'm thinking, am I really going to get Wandale Robinson back? I was thinking in the back of my brain. I knew Jacoby Myers was gone, and it was between those three for that last spot. Well, Russell Wilson hasn't played a snap this year, so we all make mistakes. That's a tough one. Cam takes advantage, and yeah, 3-1. Good looking so far in his first season, and no Beaver. We get to recap his matchup, just the two of us here. He moves to 4-0, takes down Josh and friends, Mr. Luke Hunley, who was our guest last week. Luke falls to 2-2. Drew 137 points, but JP, I want to start with Luke. A rather disappointing performance, his lowest total of the season. It doesn't help when we continue to talk about his top three, right? The three-headed monster you see on your screen right now. Josh Allen decimated by that Baltimore defense. Breece Hall not really doing a whole lot against Denver. What was a really ugly game. And Bijan Robinson just being okay. When that three-headed monster doesn't provide you a whole lot, you're not really going to have a chance to win many games.
I'm just baffled at the usage rate in Atlanta. I don't understand it. Why draft Bijan so high if they don't? I understand it was a different regime technically that picked him. But I mean, why spend a pick that high if you don't plan to use him as a workhorse? The conditions were bad in the Denver game, and but even so, I mean, Breece Hall just looks out of it. He had
Mm-hmm.
like weird drops. He looks slow. Maybe he's playing through an injury. I don't know, but Breece looks bad. Obviously, as you mentioned, I mean, Josh just got suffocated by that defense. I'm sure he'll bounce back this week against Houston. But I mean, at some point, you got to be Luke and you got to start worrying a little here. Kyle Pitts, hey, probably gonna have a good week this week if I had to guess. But
Yeah.
George Pickens is actually looking pretty good this year. I got good hope or high hopes for him as they continued. Justin Fields looked like what we all thought he was going to be in the second half of that football game. He was slinging it everywhere against Indy, which I didn't even know I was able to say those words together. But yeah, and then I mean, Luke will be fine. Luke will be fine. But Drew should be happy that his team is he's been scoring in this range all season. He's
Mm-hmm.
4-0 now. I know he's got. We'll get to it later, but he's got some guys coming up on buys and a tough matchup. But Drew should be happy with where he's at.
Yeah, Nico Collins, Xavier Worthy, David Montgomery all get a big boom this week. Fantastic performances for those gentlemen. Nico over 30. I'll say Montgomery's a boom. I know 15 might not be a whole lot, but he outperformed his projection, continuing to get those goal line carries, and Worthy as well, doing his part over on the KC side. But yeah, you look at the bottom, it's he's going to need guys to step up. And JP mentioned we'll talk about that in our preview with injuries, buys, and other things as we progress to and we'll talk about the preview as well. My favorite rebrand of the season so far, the Moodang Maulers, Cam Boyer taking on Kale. And this was a good outing for Kale, JP. One of his strongest of the season in a game. I don't want to call it a must win, but it was a game that definitely he would have taken, would have evened him up at 2-2. Instead, he falls to a dreaded 1-3. That's never a spot you want to be in a quarter way through the season. That performance wins you a good amount of games in this league, but you can't respond too much when 170 is posted on the other side.
Yeah, and I mean I'll talk about it later in the episode, but things are looking up for Kale. I wouldn't count Kale out just yet. Kelsey's starting to hit his stride, and Godwin. Johnson's looking good with Dalton. Chase is, I mean, he's always open. I mean, that touchdown he had over the weekend was absolutely insane. I think he broke 6 or 7 tackles on that run to the end zone. That was great. We just got to hope, or he's just got to hope that Tyreek Hill can get his legs back under him with Tyler Huntley over there, but. Yeah, as you mentioned, I mean, Cam Boyer putting up 170. We've mentioned it every episode. We knew this was going to happen. We knew his team was going to start hitting a stride, and that's not a 4-0 team you want to go up against right now. I'll tell you, getting Aaron Jones for what he got him for,
Yeah.
just crazy. But I mean, Josh Jacobs, no longer on the roster, as we'll talk about later in the episode when we get to the two teams who made the trade. But yeah, I mean, this things are looking good for Cam Boyer, and probably has a really good path to end up getting to 8-0, 9-0. I think he's got an easy schedule coming up. So
Yeah, 55 points between his quarterbacks, Goff and Love, doing good work for him this week. And we'll get to our preview. He gets to face Drew this week. Our two remaining undefeated squads will clash in week 5. A big win for Cam there. And the rebrand here, and you'll see later in the episode, still had that American whiskey tab when we were previewing, but this was a breaking news, an announcement in our group chat last night from Jake. Hello, I'm Mr. Frog. And he gave a whole description on Mr. Frog and what he's going to bring to Jake's team. And he had to make that move, JP, because similar to Kale, falling to 1-3, putting up just 120 points. And you look at the projections right below what Jack and Jake scored. This was supposed to be a heavy favored match for Jake, a get right game. And instead, he loses by 11 points in a game that he simply couldn't afford to lose.
yeah, when the number one fantasy player comes out, is only getting the ball 12 times. That's something you hate to see. I mean, I get the game script was not in their favor. They were trailing to Tampa for a big portion of that game. Ayuk is non-existent out there. Leads the league in routes ran and is still not doing anything. Things just Romo Dune's putting up a goose egg.
Yeah.
Richardson left the game after the first quarter, maybe a little bit into the second. But yeah, just a tough loss for Jake. I'm sure he's really hoping for a bounce back this week. I can't remember off the top of my head who he's gonna play, but I'm sure he'll get a get right win. But you just hate to be in the 1-3 spot, especially with how the mid teams, I hate to use that word, but how the average teams are playing right now. Most of them are in that 2-2, 3-1 range, and you just don't want to fall behind them, especially if you've already lost to them. So.
And he was fired up too. We're getting into the game now of naming head coaches in this league along with coordinators. And Mr. Frog, I can't say that's a real person or even a fictional person, but hey,
It
it
is
is
a
a.
fictional person. He is from the show
Oh, is he?
Smiling Friends.
That shows you
If
how little I am
if
in
you've
pop
ever
culture.
seen Smiling Friends, shout out to the league members who I know watch it. It's a great show. But yeah, Jack getting a win, and we'll talk about it once we get into the power rankings. But Jack could be a sneaky playoff team. He's definitely not a team I want to face in the playoffs because he's a roller coaster of a team. So.
There you go. Hand up. I don't know ball. Shocker. Actually, all I really do is talk ball. I not a TV guy, so I'll take that hit on the chin right there. Apologize to you, Jake, and I'm sure I'll feel the wrath of Mr. Frog at the end of the season. And I'm not looking forward to that. And as right on cue, we move on to myself, the newly named head coach of the IR, shortly after our episode recording last week. Marty Daniels going to the this is where I'll hop in with my TV knowledge, going into Blue Mountain State. Over on the fictional television side, I also named Marty's offensive coordinator Marcus Gilday as my OC, and John Hendricks as the defensive coordinator. And funny enough, I played Matt Hendricks this week, and not a good showing for John's defense in the inaugural go at it. I want to say that's the most points that have been scored against us all year. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it is the most. And for our guys, I mean, JP, I'll let you talk more on this too. The Christian Watson, man. I've played him twice this year when he's goose egg. And I know he left the game with an injury, but let's be honest, that wasn't the reason why he didn't put anything up. He left the game in like the third quarter.
Third quarter, yeah.
So it wasn't like anything was happening before that. I was hoping for more out of Cole Kmet. Jake Ferguson was awesome. And that really set the tone on Thursday night. I had good vibes going into Sunday. Calvin Ridley, thanks a lot, Beave. He's been pretty awful. And the normal guys have been doing their thing. Kamara,
Hey, I gotta ask,
Metcalf.
would you trade Devon A-Chain for Alan Lazard straight up?
I would not, but he's been super disappointing as well. He's just missing Tua. I think that's obviously the big thing. And I mean, I want to give Matt his flowers. I'm not saying it's all on my guys. His guys play great too. You see the top four guys right there: Mayfield, Connor, Williams, Diggs. They were great. And he had texted me on Monday and said, if we had played some guys off our benches, it would have been an even better game, which is true. Javonte Williams, Trey Tucker, Xavier Legette was awesome again. And those are just things we need to correct going forward. Now taking on the full-time GM role in the front office. Me and Marty, we collaborate on the lineup every week, so I'll take partial blame. And yeah, we'll move on. I don't know what else you have to add, but disappointing, but the run had to come to an end at some point. This team isn't built like the other two undefeated teams in this league. And last but certainly not least, another big performance, another 168 points in the league this week from Frank. 2-game winning streak, gets out of that 0-2 hole, moves to 2-2. 102 for Brady. He is now 1-3. And JP, you see it right there. Kenneth Walker really carrying the load for Frank this week. A 33-point performance. You see good performances as well from Gibbs, St. Brown, and Malik Neighbors on Thursday Night Football. Frank's starting to hit his stride similar to Cam in that regard in terms of just overall production.
Yeah, I'm actually getting a little worried the farther I scroll down for Frank. This team is so good. He's this team is so good. Dade, I hate you. I cannot believe you made that trade. But hey, on a positive note for Brady, he may have got hit on a expansion or long-term quarterback in the expansion draft. I'm not saying Fields is going to be some elite starter in the NFL, but in terms of fantasy, he's been a great quarterback every single year he's been in the league. I mean, yeah, they go to show. It goes to show. Jesus, if I could speak. The one season he was fully healthy, he was the QB7. He's the QB6 right now. Good stuff for Brady. Not much to say on Brady. I've spoken to Brady. He's not openly winning. He's not openly tanking. He said he wants to be in that 3 to 5 range. He doesn't want to do Fat Panda, and he doesn't want to collect the money. So he's perfectly content with being 1-3. But yeah, Frankie's hitting a stride, and I'm starting to get a little worried. I don't know when I already played him. Never mind.
There you
I
go.
don't care. Frankie can hit a stride all he wants. I own the tiebreaker. So
He can hit his stride right now, but he's got to pump the brakes by week 14. He's my rival. So that is important to note as well. And we'll definitely get into that more with Frank in the power rankings coming up. So that's the recap from our most recent week of action, week number 4. You got it from me and JP. Some lack of pop culture knowledge from myself and much, much more. Don't worry, fans. Beaver's coming your way right now. Let's get to the week 5 preview. It is now time to preview our week 5 matchups. I've already gone through the recap. We have our power rankings to come as well, but some good matchups this week. We start here with the one on our screen right now. Benjamin Haggerty coming off his first win in his first game as the head coach for JP's squad, taking on Matt, who took down me last week. Both teams at 2-2. Spread right now sitting just around 20 points in favor of JP, a little bit under that. I'll give you the floor for this one, JP. Big win for your group last week. On paper, this is a matchup you're favored in, but as we've learned in this league over the first 4 weeks of the 2024 season, there is no such thing as a shoe-in victory unless you're playing date or tie.
yeah, and I'm really not feeling overwhelmingly confident going out and getting Josh Jacobs, even though he has not had a great season. I'm still going to Kill Sleeper. Every time I click on a player, it moves me off of these freaking matchups. But I mean, Jacobs sitting at running back 28 is pitiful, but the volume is there. Eventually, he's going to start getting that RB1 production. I hope he starts Keenan Allen because Keenan Allen is a waste of space at this point. And every week we move on, it keeps looking like Matt officially lost that trade for Isaiah Likely and Keenan Allen down here, in which he gave up a first and Isavas. But I'm still feeling all right. We're coming off a huge win in which the offense looked absolutely electric, as I mentioned earlier. But yeah, I'm feeling a win for myself here, and I'm picking myself to win this.
Beaver, what are we feeling here?
I got nothing much on this matchup. Like you said, that Keenan Allen trade looks terrible now, especially going up a first for two duds. We see likely at that big week in week one, but other than that, I mean that tight end room in Baltimore's just been looking ugly. I mean, they both after week one they both look like left tackles out there, for being honest. Other than that, I got JP by a landslide. I don't like Matt's flex options either. I don't like him starting Cortland Sutton, even though he's led the team in targets. Even though Denver's 2-2, I don't like the play. I don't care about the points. I see he's had double digits back-to-back weeks. I still do not care. He still sucks, and he still sucks, and he will still suck on week 14.
Hey,
And
I was gonna say at
yeah,
least Russell
that's all
Wilson's
I
not
got.
throwing to the football anymore.
Yeah, no kidding.
That was bad.
That
Yeah,
is
short and
that
simple.
is very true.
Yeah, JP 168 points, like we were talking about. We mentioned in the recap. Benjamin Haggerty immediately coming in, making a difference, leading the troops. Yeah, projections speak for the whole story here. Not much else to say. Derrick Henry coming off a monster game as well against Buffalo. Looking to see if he can repeat that again with Cincy this week. I'm taking JP to win. As up next, an even bigger projection in terms of the swing. Kale against Cam Kruk. And, looking at guys, both of these options, both teams, Cam coming off a victory last week, Kale losing to Cam Boyer. I know when we looked at the records, and we'll get to those at the end once we lock in our picks for the week. Half the panel, or you two, were on Kale, and I was on Cam Boyer. That was an interesting matchup to look into. But right off the rip, guys, when looking at these two teams, what sticks out to you in this matchup? I guess we could start with JP.
Well, I mean, as you just saw, I went off on a little tangent there, stalking Cam Crook's roster. I know we looked at it earlier, but who does anyone know who he started at running back last week?
I,
Outside of Brian Robinson, does anyone know who his other starter was?
I can check that right now.
I can't remember. I know we just looked, but
Oh, you know
uh,
what? No, was it no, because he
no,
traded
he made the
J.K.
Dobbins
Dobbin.
trade before
Yeah.
game.
Well, he didn't
uh,
start Pierce.
he
He
started
started.
Dernis Johnson from
Oh, he actually,
Jacksonville.
so he did in fact. Okay, I saw
Yeah,
Dearness Johnson down there. I wasn't sure if he started him. Anywho, yeah, looking at Cam's power or his team now, I feel dumb for where I put him in my power rankings. For some reason, I thought his team was much better than this. But I am excited for him because A.T. Perry is allegedly making his debut this year, and A.T. Perry's a guy I got a lot of hope in. But quite frankly, there's not a lot to say on this matchup. Kale's record does not indicate that his team is starting to get hot at all. I'm taking Kale to cover the 35-point spread here and win it in a landslide.
yeah. I think, and I talked about this in the recap for Kale last week against Cam Boyer in terms of just setting the tone through the first quarter of our season. Right, it's a must-win game, especially when you're going against a team of that caliber. And his team did fine, all things considered. 135 points is a fine showing in this league. Normally, if you put up 135, you're giving yourself a good chance to win. Unfortunately, Cam Boyer punches back with 170, and there's just not much of a response to be had there. I do agree, and I will second that point you made, JP, on his team is better than the roster, or than the record, I should say, speaks for. And yeah, just not a lot of depth on Cam's team, which once again shouldn't come as too much of a shock for these expansion squads. They're not going to have a whole lot of that in the first year or so. I'm taking Kale by a wide margin.
And one more thing I want to add real quick is I don't think it's crazy to say that for a one, like if this was a redraft league, it obviously isn't. But I mean, this wide receiver core is crazy
Yeah.
for a 1 year of production. I mean, Kelsey looks like he's going to start getting back on track after last week. Tyreek, we just hope that Huntley can start getting him the ball. But I mean, these three have been phenomenal. Deontay Johnson's been a whole different breed of player since Dalton took over. But yeah, I mean, Kale is not someone I want to get in the way of right now. That team's starting to heat up. So, Beef.
Yeah, I'm glad he's my rival. That he's heating up now. I'm glad I got him at week 1 when he was on his dud week. But yeah, I'm done supporting the Mighty Poleaxe, if that's how you pronounce it. But I really don't give a crap. I'm so fed up with Cam right now. I hope he loses every other game. Not every other game. I hope he loses every game now.
What's the
My bad.
why are you so fed up with him? What's the deal?
This man, bro. They act like I'm the biggest. Like in our last poll that we had in the last episode, they act like I'm the worst guy to trade with. Hey, go try to trade with Jack Bauer or Kale Ferrone. Let me know how that goes for you guys. Please, I'd like to hear it. Oh no. I offer this guy a fair trade. And he's like, you know what? No, I'm gonna go trade with my fellow member, Matthew Hendricks. You know what? That's fine. I don't got any beef with Matt. Good for you. It's a great trade you made, but just trying to get Brian Robinson from him. And he's like, we're in a PlayStation party the other day. Just all the little boys hanging out. And he's like, oh, you want Brian Robinson? Yeah, I'll take him. Well, too bad. He's staying on my team. You don't have any luck with him. I'm keeping him. So it's just all beef now between me and him. I don't want to see him for a while. If he gets drunk on alley and left next weekend, I wouldn't mind. But that's my take on the night. Let's go, Kale.
I think part of this, Drew, stems from you still being a little butthurt over the poll last week. I still think you're not over that. Is that true?
I might not be, but
Yeah.
there's good things coming for Chewbacca Chews a lot. I will say that.
And we will get to that, but first we're going to start with Frankie and Dade. The two guys known for making the infamous worst trade in this league's history get to square off here in week 5. There isn't much to say. Frank, as we talked about in the recap, appears to be back, starting 0-2, back-to-back weeks of insane production. And there it is. Yes, there is the infamous trade. Amon-Ra and ETN will get to go against the initial drafter of them in the inaugural draft. And Dade does not have
looking at this again, I cannot believe this is real. I cannot believe that is real, bro.
Get that off my screen, bro.
I cannot believe that's real.
Yeah.
All right, here's my take on this match.
We've had some bad trades, guys.
Does that even beat the Bryce Young trade? Like, is that hand in hand to that?
No. That trade is 10 times worse than the Bryce Young misclick. Dude, the crazy thing is Frankie's projected 130 points, and he's missing Gibbs and St. Brown from his starting lineup right now. Jesus. Anyway, I'm taking Frank to win. This ain't even going to be close. I don't know what's the spread here.
40, I don't even need to.
35. I'm taking Frankie to cover. I'm taking an alt spread of 60. He's doubling the spread.
Yeah, my spread didn't hit last week. I know I took his total over ever in Beaver Fest. That obviously didn't hit. So I was down quite a bit of money last week on that. But yeah, I got the Colorado Buffaloes in this one by a landslide. As you see on the right hand side, we have the Spankies starting Carson Steele, who had negative 0.2 last week. So that's all you need to tell me.
Starting Van Jefferson.
And Van Jefferson as his receiver 2. You know what? Yeah, you take it away. I don't even want to get into this.
I think just the few minutes of rambling is all you really need to know. It's Frank, and it really shouldn't be a contest at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're going to run into those. And we have another one of these here. I would like to think. Unfortunately, for those who follow, make sure go check out beaver.fest on Instagram. All the updates regarding trades, instant final scores, previews, all that stuff. And also, we're hoping to have it in the league where everyone can name a head coach. I know we made the joke last week, but right after we got off recording, I decided to pull a fictional coach, Marty Daniels. He is the second head coach. I stepped away from the sidelines to the front office. I go, and and there's a nice picture of me. But fortunately, Marty not able to get his first win as the head coach last week. I'm hoping he can get it here. If he doesn't, there are going to be some real problems. So once again, I mean, I can let you guys talk more about it. Disappointing performances, like I mentioned in the recap, but in starting some guys, if you scroll down that I don't love, Xavier Legette was awesome last week. He's my wide receiver 2 due to injury and other stuff. What is Tipton's is that Marcus Tipton?
I don't
know. I have no idea.
I don't know who that is. So
I don't either.
The fact
Hey,
the
shout out
fact,
to Leggette's first tutty last week too.
yeah, no, he looked awesome, and I'm hoping Trey Tucker can look great too. Man, he is really starting guys that I've never even heard of before. Yeah, if we lose this, I don't know. I mean,
You
obviously, I
might
always
need
take
to
myself.
find. You
Yeah,
might need to look for
I have nothing else to say except if you lose this, it might be time to
move on.
fire the GM. The GM might have
Yeah,
to go.
Marty can stay. John, and Marcus too. We talked a lot about the coaching staff, so we won't get too much of that there. But yeah, me and the entire panel will go that way too, as the rebranded American whiskey taking on Overdose. Quite the clash. Jake and Brady, 1-3 is Mr. Zaparo. And guys, he said in our chat this week that after the loss last week, changes need to and will be made. Obviously, he's a heavy favorite here. We're starting to get into bye weeks too, so guys are going to have to can't rely on the main starting 10 as much anymore. And I think that's really where things are going to get tough for the expansion teams. And I mean, teams like myself who are injured a lot. Jake's the clear cut favorite here. A lot of guys are due for a bounce back week. I mean, nothing else to be said on my end. I'm going with Jake.
Yeah, I want to take Brady to win this so bad. I mean, Justin Fields, like a 35-point performance from Fields. Like Roshan and Singletary just happen to find the end zone and both finish with like 13. Lockett finally scores and gets like 14. Isobas scores and gets 10. Coleman scores and gets. He just needs a lot of touchdowns, and I really think he can win. I'm not gonna take Brady, but if Brady wins this matchup, I would not be shocked whatsoever at all if Zippy were to start the season 1-4. But I'm gonna take Zippy for the sake that I'm chasing 2 games, so I don't want to fall down 3. So I'm gonna take Zippy.
Yeah, I'm also gonna take Zippy here, just because I'm in the lead of us. I don't want to screw that up. I got a 2-win lead, I think, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? Something like that. But something. I'm gonna take Brady spread this week on FanDuel. If you guys want to take that with me, I will be taking his spread this week. I think he will cover because I think it's gonna be a big Tank Bigsby week.
Okay. You might be the only person I've heard say that about Tank Bigsby all season. Unless he did well last week and I didn't know about it. I know when Brady played me, he put up a gooser. Yeah. All right. Beave calling a shot. Bigsby hasn't gotten more than 32% of the snaps in a game this year. And he's a little banged up. But Drew is calling a shot. This is going to be a Tank Bigsby week. And we're here for it. So we move on to our matchup of the week. It's got to be the only 2 undefeated teams remaining in Beaverfest. Drew, Cam Boyer, Chewbacca Chews a lot, the Mudang Maulers. You, as the audience, can't see Drew right now, dealing with some network technical difficulties. Don't want him looking like he keeps on freezing. But we do have Drew here. Drew, we will give you the floor to talk about your big Week 5 matchup right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you see, I made a trade this week. I traded for Chuba Hubbard. I love it. I just don't love that I got to go up against my mighty Bears. I don't think he's gonna have a good week. That's just me. I don't really have another option but starting him. But I do have my best. I don't even want to say this. I'm gonna have to say it though. God damn it. All right, I'm taking Cam this week. I'm gonna get killed by. I'm taking his spread, dude. I'm gonna get absolutely mollywops this week.
Wow.
It's not. It's not even be close. I got Devontae Smith out. I got Hurts. I got my best player producing for me, David Montgomery. I mean, it's got a bunch of guys out this week on a bye week. Uh, the only way I see myself winning this week. Oh, and I forgot. I got Sam Laporta. I'm starting freaking Johnny Munt at freaking tight end.
I hate
Johnny Munt.
I hate Johnny Munt so much.
He's gonna have to be my all-star this week. He's gonna have to drop 25 points for me.
What
this
has
week.
Johnny Munt done this year? He's done
nothing.
He scored a touchdown and beat me. That's what he did.
You know what he's done, Yak?
He caught one ball and scored a touchdown and beat me. It could have been a normal catch. He wouldn't.
He
have beat
looks
me,
like the most generic dude ever.
He's looked at Sam Darnold and was like, please throw me the ball. I just want one catch so I can make my family proud. Throw me the ball. Throw me the ball, please, please. That's how he's gonna be on my team this week. I need 2 catches from him just for about 30 yards. Just get me a solid 6 to 8 points, and I'll be fine with it. But I'm really gonna need Vanilla Vic to go off this week. He's playing a Seattle team that has an okay defense. As you see, they got mollywopped by Detroit this week. I think Danny Dimes can put up some good numbers. Not like Jalen Hurts, but I think he can get me close to 20 points. I'm really going to need Caleb Williams to perform really well, too. Him and DJ Moore got to pop off against a really bad Panthers team. I know they're 1-3. They got their first win last week, not against the Bengals the week before, blah, blah, blah. But this is his game that he needs to shine. I'm not even saying this because I'm biased for the Bears because I love them, but this is his game that he needs to show people that he's the real deal and show me that he's the real deal for fantasy football too. But that's all I got here. Unfortunately, I think my time is done being undefeated. I think Cam's gonna beat me. I hate picking against myself, but I don't even see this being close. And plus, I'm not wearing my famous Beaverfest shirt. I totally forgot about it.
Even if you
So
were, we couldn't see it. So
I just want to let the fans know that I like being honest and I'm not wearing it. So that's another bad sign.
JP, you gonna side with Drew's pick as well with Mr. Boyer?
I'm actually gonna take Drew in dramatic upset fashion here.
Wow.
Projected to lose by. This is my upset of the week. I was just going through Cam Boyer's matchups, and I don't like a single one of them. Besides maybe Kyron going up against Green Bay. And I guess I do like Kirk up against Indy. What really worries me is if Ingram does not end up playing this week, he's got to start Jonnu Smith.
Johnny Smith against Johnny Mundt. What a matchup of the tight ends.
And back to Drew's previous point, I do think this is the Caleb Williams week. It's getting time for it to be the Romeo Dobbs week. He hasn't had one of those yet.
Someone plays theme song.
Greg Dortch will get back in the end zone eventually at some point. Last week was bad. They're going to correct a lot of things, and I expect them to be down a lot versus San Fran and throwing a lot. Worthy's going to have to step up. DJ Moore should be a benefitter.
Yeah.
Hey, whatever you think.
Benefitter of the Caleb Williams game. Nico Collins is probably a top 10 receiver in the league right now, and Chuba Hubbard is going up against a pretty bad rushing defense. I don't know. Okay. I don't think it's gonna be a lot.
Just stop it. It's not gonna be close,
I do think
bro.
that Cam Boyer's gonna undershoot his projection and Drew will go over his, and I'm gonna take Beave to win.
Hey, let's be real though, before you jump in this shock. Is Nico Collins a top 5 receiver right now in this league?
No.
I don't think so.
Top 10.
All right. CD, Jettis, and Chase. Who's better? He's playing better than Tyreek right now.
CD Lamb.
Yeah. I already said CD.
Oh.
You said
CD, Jettis, and Chase. Who's better than him after that?
Making me dig here. That's always tough.
Juwan Jennings.
Yeah, Jajuan. My guy. I don't know. That's a discussion for another day. But I'm gonna take Cam Boyer. I was the only one to take him last week over Kale, and I kind of see where Drew's coming from. Obviously, the matchups aren't great. No Jalen Hurts. Whenever you have to start Johnny Mundt, that's not ideal. So I just think those factors included, Cam will be the team that'll be 5-0 at this time next week. As we keep chugging right along, we have one last matchup. Josh and his friends, a tough loss for Luke, undershooting his projection last week. An impressive win for Jack Bauer. Now the Monaco Gentle Sirs, both at 2-2. Luke favored by the projections, fellas. But where are we starting? I guess, Beave, we'll start with you. What do we think about this matchup?
This is another guy that I'm not been getting along with recently over trade talks.
Oh, boy.
So I'm going to have to go with Josh and his friends by a landslide. I'm taking the spread. Actually, I'm going to double the spread. I think he's going to win by 40. We got Jonathan Taylor beat up. Chase Brown did see better production last week. But if you slide down, I can't. I don't like a Josh Downs or a Tolbert game. I just don't like it. 22 points. Woohoo! Congrats, man. He's just a deep ball threat. It's that type of offense where you don't know who's going to get that deep ball in that game on that team. Is it going to be Pierce or is it going to be Downs? It's just kind of a coin flip of who it's going to be that week. I also do not like Jacob Brissett. The offense is terrible, even though they are going against Miami, so he might be a little better. That is going to be a brutal game, my lord. But yeah, I think this is also hot take. I think this is T. Higgins' big game this week. I got Luke by landslide though.
All right. I'll second that. I think this is a get right week for Luke. Poor performances from the big three of Allen, Bijan, and Brees Hall. When that happens, you're not going to win a whole lot. It happened to him last week. I don't think it happens again, despite that matchup with Houston for Josh Allen being a bit interesting. And the overseas games are always definitely something as well with Brees Hall. I think the three of those guys will play a little bit better this week. And I just think what Luke brings depth wise will outplay Jack. And I think Jack's season is going to be like this, up, down, up, down. And we've seen that through the first 4 weeks. So if the trends repeat itself, he's due for a down week. So I'll take Luke.
Yeah, I'm doing it again. I'm taking Jack. I'm not going to take Jack here. I was going through this and I like the matchups. I think T-Law, the Jaguars always beat the Colts when they host the Colts. The Colts always struggle on the road at Jacksonville. It's just trend. McLaurin's starting to heat up a little bit. Now they are going up against what's supposed to be a tough defense, but has been not very good. Rashid Shaheed had a bad game last week, which means he's due. Oh, never mind. No, he did not. Oh my God, they threw him the ball 11 times. Yeah, I'm picking Jack to win. I'm picking Jack to win. I'm taking Jack. Give me Jack.
JP's got a chance to get a couple games back this week. He's going for it. In hindsight, I probably should have done the same thing, go all or nothing. But we still have a lot of season left, so I understand those. When we look, JP, if you want to read through the picks again, and I know we've been saying this whole time Drew's 2 games up, but the record's entering this week as well.
Yep. So coming into this week, we have Drew sitting at 20-8, and me and Andy sitting at 18-10, trailing 2 games to Drew. Let's go through this week's picks. So starting off with the first game, me versus Matt, we all took myself. Then Kale versus Cam K, we all took Kale. For the next 3 matchups, we all took the same person. We all took Frank. We all took Andy. We all took Zippy. Then for the next 2 matchups, you both took Cam Boyer. I took Drew. And for the last matchup, you both took Luke. I took Jack.
We'll head out to our power rankings to close out the show. Those are our picks here for week 5. Rounding out the show like we always do, the weekly power rankings, and a lot of movement here from the bottom, especially in for the second straight week, fellas. We all have a different number 1 showing out in the power rankings. This is once again JP's amazing spreadsheet and the ability to combine all of our averages. So JP, I'll let you take it away and conduct and have the floor for the 1 through 14 this week.
Yeah, I'm honored to be number 1, in part to my own selfishness, putting myself number 1. But I felt deserved. I am number 1 in the league in points for, and that's really my own basis. Although I am an unfortunate 2-2, I am first for points for, and I think that the new hiring of Benjamin Haggerty is really going to give us some momentum needed to earn and hold this 1 spot for a foreseeable future. Then moving on immediately to Frankie, who's staying at number 2. For me personally, it was a toss-up between him and Cam Boyer at number 2. They're both coming off insane weeks. But I was just a little more impressed by what Cam Boyer's got cooking in the oven than what Frankie's got cooking in the oven. So I went with Cam Boyer at number 2. Yak, you had Frank at number 1. Let's get your thoughts on that, and then we'll immediately jump to you, Drew, talking about yourself and you at number 1, and me and Andy having you at both 4.
Yeah, I think for me with Frank, it's I get where you're coming from with Boyer, but I've seen it with Frank's team too. The offense has come alive, and I just think we know with his roster, he is between, I think either you or him are capable of a 200-point week, and just having that in mind, knowing that feels like he's starting to hit his stride here. It's what we've expected from Frank, and because we're getting back to that level of what we've known that his team can be. We had him number 1 preseason, and as we entered the year, and because he's hitting that standard once again, it felt right for me to give him the top spot this week.
Understandably, Beave, let's hear what you got to say about yourself at 1, and then me and Yak both putting you at 4.
I just really put myself at 1 because, hey, man, I'm 4-0. There's only 1 other team 4-0, and that's Cam Boyer.
Who you ranked at 4?
Yeah.
I did rank him at 4. But you see, I think Frank. You guys laugh. You guys laugh. I'm gonna say why I think this, and you guys keep laughing. I don't give a shit. Uh, I voted Cam fourth because I've talked about this many weeks. I know he had an explosive week last week, but he's that team man that like he hasn't one played anybody yet, and two he has those weeks where he's up and down and he'll score 89 points one week and he'll score 165 points next week, the week after. Like you just never know with him. That's my problem with his team. I want to see him play me this week, and I'm going to reevaluate him. Like I said earlier, I think he's going to kick the living crap out of me uh, due to some people in buys. But, I was a little biased, put myself at 1. Do I deserve to be number 1? Absolutely not. I should probably be like 3 or 4. But, you got that bias in you sometimes where you're just like, hey, screw it, let's do it. But, yeah, that's all I got.
And then moving on, Yak, we got yourself at 5, all of us in agreement there, and moving down a spot. I think we can really just chalk that up to a poor performance in the Marty Daniels debut and the injuries starting to pile up. I really don't think we got much to discuss with your team there. We all know that 1 through 5, we're all talking or 1 through 6 even, we're talking the championship contenders. Moving on to number 6, we have the last time you'll hear this, American Whiskey being Zippy, who me and Andy actually were a little lower on this week, putting him at 7 and then putting number 7 at 6, who is John Deere Sucks, which is Kale. And, as me and Andy mentioned earlier in the previews, we both discussed how Kale is just hitting the ground running. And although him and Jake, both sitting at 6 and 7, are both 1 and 3, we expect much more from them. I want to get to number 8, Drew, and hear your thoughts. You got Matt ranked the highest, and you've been the highest on Matt all season. Any particular reason you like Matt more than both Luke and Kale?
I just really like the trade you just made with Cam Crook. Getting J.K. Dobbins and Jacoby Myers after how Devontae Adams just requested the trade. I think Myers' ceiling's going to go way up now just because Adams is sitting out. Also, he does have Devontae Adams on his bench, so wherever he gets traded, I think he's going to be a lot useful for Matt wherever he goes. I think he's going to go to a good situation wherever he lands. And also, back to what I was saying about J.K. Dobbins, he's been used well over there in LA. As you can see, Harbaugh knows how to run the ball. He's producing massively over there. I just like what Matt's doing. Granted, he has no picks. He did just get Dade's, I believe, 2025 second this year, so that'll be 2.1 or 2.2, depending how his matchup goes with Ty. But yeah, I like the direction Matt's going. I like how his team's come together.
Yep, and then we move on to the bottom 5. Andy, round this out for us. Let the viewers know how bad these teams are.
Yeah, I mean, we've said that this is going to be the bottom group for most of the season, and we do have some differences for the first time. Was it last week? We literally all
Perfect
three of us
down the
10 through 14. Yeah, not the same this week. You guys both have Jack at 10. I put him at 12, and I mentioned this in the previews. His team probably is better than some of the ones like in general, like who has the ability to have a good week. For me, consistency is huge, and literally, it's every other week. He either goes off for 130 plus, or he's sitting well south of 100. For me, consistency is a key factor in where I rank these teams. And because of that, he's a little lower for me. We all were different on Brady at 11. Similar thing. Big week against JP in week 3, getting the victory. A little bit back to earth this past week, so he kind of sticks around in that same spot. Cam, after making some trades, despite him being 3-1, is down in the 12 spot. Drew had him at 12. JP and I having him at 11. I'm sure that'll cause some fun. And this is cool too. For the first time, we all don't have Dade at 14. Beaver and I put Dade at 13. Ty, and we talked about in the recap, this is going to be the new regular, at least for the remaining of this season for Ty. I give credit for Dade, and you guys can chip in on this as well. He's continuing to score more points every week. It's still obviously not enough, but he is progressing week by week in terms of what he's been able to score. So because of that, think that he earned not being totally in the basement for this week's power rankings.
Yeah, and my whole basis for putting him still last is, I mean, his roster probably is better, but I don't think Dade's going to win a game, and therefore, all because Ty owns that one win already. I just think Ty is should be above him in the power rankings. Dade's going to win the tank off, in my humble opinion, as long as he does not violate any rules. And because of that, I think that Ty will, for me at least, remain at 13 until proven otherwise.
Beaver, thoughts on the bottom 5 before we get out of here?
Yeah, I was just looking at the schedule way up. Week 8 and week 9 is going to be interesting for Ty. He's got Brady and Dade back to back. It'll be interesting to see what those two guys do. I could see Dade taking that whole thing and using his little freebie.
He
And
will.
I could use Brady using his freebie too, just to screw over Ty, just so he jumps over him because he got that
Wouldn't be a bad move.
because
No.
he's got that win over JP. So I mean, I could see it.
Not that we're giving out advice, but this is just simply
Yeah.
analysis.
Yeah, just
Yep.
analysis,
And
yeah.
but the one thing I do want to point out for this week is we will only be down to one undefeated team after this week. We did kind of glance over it in the preview, but yes, again, Drew taking on Cam Boyer, both 4-0. One team will be 5-0 at the end of this. I don't think we've ever made it to week 5 with an undefeated team. I could be wrong, and I will correct myself in the next episode. I will go back and have that actual factual basis for the next episode, but I do want to say that this is the longest we've had an undefeated team.
Yeah.
But anywho, Beav, I'm rooting for you. I can't believe you didn't pick yourself. I'm ashamed. But
It's gonna be not pretty, man. I promise you. I can't believe you picked myself. I don't even know why you have confidence in myself. It's gonna be disgusting.
He wants to
Greg
make
Dortch's
a game.
legacy game. Greg
wants to
Dortch's
make
legacy game.
It's gonna be a mutt game. It's gonna have to be a 30-point mutt game.
Johnny Mudd for 40.
I'm not gonna say if Johnny Munt does this because of all the viral stuff for the college football
And
on
plus,
Twitter. So I won't
look
say
what
that.
look what now that my camera's working, guys. Sorry about the technical difficulties earlier. I'm wearing my pop.
Pop a top. You're gonna pop a Cam Boyer is what you're gonna do.
As he apologizes
he's apologizing for the bad Wi-Fi he lags out there. All right, Andy, take us home.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode, everyone, of Just Beavin. No guests this week. We'll get back on that track next week. Just a simple old recap, preview, and power rankings. We'll catch you again next week right here on your favorite podcast for fantasy football, Just Beavin.